Hello, welcome. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We will be doing a live today with a special guest, Dr. Ayanna Davis. I wanted to just give a few minutes for people to join in because I know sometimes there's some connection issues. So again, I want to welcome you to Manifesting Healing. I see people joining in now. I see our guest, Dr. Davis, and I will join her in shortly. So excited to have her here today. So we will be talking again about supporting Black women healing from toxic work environments. So as I mentioned before, we had talked about workplace bullying. We had previously talked about stages of grief in relation to Black women in toxic work environments. So if you would like to see more of those videos, please look at my YouTube channel, Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. So all the videos are housed there. Please subscribe and click notifications so that you will be able to access those videos and you will learn about and be updated anytime that I post new material. So again, welcome to Manifesting Healing Monday. I see more people joining in. So welcome to my channel, Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where we focus on supporting individual and collective healing. So in what ways do we manifest healing? Okay. So as we're waiting for Dr. Davis to join in, she has to try to connect so we can have her on live. So I wanted to provide a platform for Black women to be able to talk about experiences of toxic work experiences. So unfortunately, the data shows that Black women we're disproportionately exposed to and encounter workplace bullying. And I want to be very clear that when we talk of letting us know that we're not alone in our experience, and also from the perspective that we are victors, not victims. Okay. So hello, Dr. Davis. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you today?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining. I was just giving a brief introduction. And I was just mentioning that, we're having this conversation to really bring awareness to how common, Black women being in toxic work experiences is, right? So many times we feel like we're alone or there's something wrong with us. But what we're doing is we're saying, no, you're not alone. There's not something wrong with you. And on the day of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as we're celebrating him, we're talking about, just as he did, we're speaking out against, and speaking up against injustice, right? So we're talking about in the workplace. So we are modeling that behavior. So speaking up and speaking out against injustice. So I want to, again, thank you for joining today, Dr. Davis. And if you can briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll get started into the conversation.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Ayanna Davis. I am born and raised in the city of Compton. I'm a proud resident of Compton. I graduated from USC undergrad. I attained a master's degree from Cal State Dominguez, another one at Cal State Northridge, and a terminal degree at USC, doctorate in education. I've been a principal for 22 years. And I am in a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, and I'm also in a educator sorority, National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Beta Phi chapter. So I'm very involved with sisterhood and working with women, and that I'm passionate about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do want to say also that I'm going to be trying to monitor the chat and incorporating comments as much as I can. And just to be very transparent, Dr. Davis and I work with the same employer, by the same employer, right? We're employed by the same company. So I want to be transparent about that. And even though we are not there or here on that capacity of that organization, I just want to be transparent about that. And we met because I was presenting to your group, right? And so we came to meet each other in that regard, right? So first, I want to say that I appreciate that you are so willing to talk about your experiences because we know the power of testimony and we know how powerful testimony is healing, not only for ourselves, but for other Black women, right? So, Dr. Davis, if you could just share with us just briefly about an experience you had in a toxic, work environment. If you can share with us, you don't have to go into details, but just what was that experience
Mhm.
like? What happened?
So, what was most painful about the experience is that, we're talking about women, Black
Mm-hmm.
women. And so, my most painful yet rewarding, as far as the lessons that I learned, experience from working a very toxic, hostile work environment came from someone who looked like me. And when I was reflecting back on that experience, that was most painful of who it was coming from versus what was being done to me. So I
Mm-hmm.
internalized a lot of that because I was really heartbroken and just disappointed that it came from a particular person.
Right.
And so it made me physically ill, um, emotionally ill,
Hmm.
very sad, very depressed, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to work through a spiritual. Mhm.
Wow. And that definitely touches on what I've talked about before in terms of how these toxic work experiences can affect us physically, psychologically, and spiritually. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit in terms of, because it's important for us to not only say this happened to us, but to say specifically what happened to us, because if another Black woman is going through this, she may not recognize the signs, right? So it's important for us to be aware of the signs, acknowledge the signs so we can heal. So I'm wondering if you could just share just a little bit in terms of what were your physical, psychological, and spiritual signs that something was not right?
So because I felt very hopeless and I felt very devalued. I spent
Mm,
many years in the organization in a specific field, and I was very well respected in that department. And I felt
mm-hmm,
like my integrity was questioned, my ethics, my character, and that really bothered me. And I
mm-hmm,
also believe so true that people who were in certain positions that were reaping the benefit from being in those positions was part of the hard work that I've done fighting for, with the union for our salaries, fighting for,
mm-hmm.
just a respect within the department with some of my colleagues. And then for me to be a veteran in that department and just being attacked, very attacked with, and actually coming for me where I could have possibly lost my job, just really
Wow.
coming for me. So, I harbored a lot of ill feelings, a lot of resentment. And so the anger, and let me just say this, because of who I am, I had to work through how I would deal with this in another arena. Because this was a
Hmm.
professional setting, I had to make sure that I dealt with this professionally because I would
Right.
actually wanted to resort to another way of dealing with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right. Right. Right.
and that is common amongst all of us. A lot
Yeah.
of us have to stay very professional when we
Mm-hmm.
know how we can really nip it in the bud. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
right. So that was a spiritual challenge for me to really go to the
Yeah.
divine Holy Spirit and know that, I could not let a weapon, I knew a weapon couldn't form against me will prosper. And then I also had to
Right.
realize that Jesus couldn't have resurrected if it had not been a Judas.
True that. True that. True
So,
that.
mhm.
So in that moment, it's all these things are happening to you. You feel attacked, so you feel harmed. And then you have to be mindful of how other people are seeing you and the possible consequences if you do certain things. And you don't want to be the angry Black woman stereotype. So all of these things are going on. But the thing is this, and I keep saying this, is that as Black women, we try so hard not to present ourselves as angry. And on one level, that's important because we don't want to feed into the stereotype, but we need to have spaces to be able to acknowledge when we've been harmed, okay? Because we have been harmed. You okay, Dr. Davis?
I'm okay. My platform is shaky. Okay.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we need to be able to acknowledge we've been harmed, and we have every right to be angry when we've been harmed. So that part, right? And then you said that you started internalizing it. So when you think about that, it was not only just the harm in terms of what they were doing, but it was the public humiliation, right? The threat of your livelihood. It was like, I call it like psychological lynching. So it's like they're
Hmm.
putting you out to kind of like have everybody look at you and then for you to, so the internalized part. So you started to question parts of yourself or what you were doing. Is that how it looks?
Yes. It did.
Ah,
It did.
okay.
And, I felt isolated. You know what I mean? Because no one
Mm,
really knows through, and then oftentimes you're embarrassed to speak about it. But I
yes.
knew that eventually I wanted to talk about it, and I have been, and I also support other women who feel comfortable, coming to me for advice or just suggestions on how to deal with it because they're experiencing it right now. And I feel
Yes.
now I'm not fearful with saying what happened. I'm okay with facing the dragon, and I
Yes.
can walk with my head up. I know the divine Holy Spirit got me through that for
Right.
this reason for today, for us to talk
Yes.
about healing one another. Hmm.
Absolutely. Because sometimes we go through trauma, it provides a certain level of clarity that we didn't have before. And it pushes us to a level where, as the Jan Levin says, we're just break wide open. So it's nothing we fear anymore. So what else can happen to us? Because we've already gone through the worst. So
Right.
doing that and recognizing that so we can then heal other women. Okay. So I appreciate that
Hmm.
you have been able to talk about it in that regard. So if you could talk a little bit in terms of what was that moment that it was like, this is just too much? Like, this is just too much for me. Like, what was that moment? Like, how could you tell that you were at that point?
When I felt as if I didn't belong. So once I felt like, when I got to the place where I felt like maybe I just don't belong in this setting, maybe
Mm,
I need to find another job. And I never felt like that before. So I said, no, I'm letting this circumstance dictate how I feel about who I am. That's when I had to draw the
mm-hmm.
line, when I
Ah,
didn't feel motivated to perform like I normally performed, and
yes.
because I was hurt on the job, the situation that happened and the
Mm-hmm.
following the harassment, retaliation followed, you know, um, the circumstance of why I was physically ill. Um, I said, no, I had time to be off of work and stay home and take care of myself and nurture myself. And as I was
Mm-hmm.
being torn down on one aspect with one small group of people, there was a whole world of other people who were lifting me up, giving me opportunities that really showed me who I really am. Once
Yes.
opportunities presented larger setting, I was like, okay, this is you're a Goliath maybe,
Right.
and I'm David.
Right.
It,
Right.
like I can do
And
you.
also, thank
I
you
can.
for revealing yourself to me, right? So thank you. So I know I can't trust you. And thank you for
Right.
providing other opportunities I never even considered. So thank you in that regard, right? And,
Yes.
you talked about taking some time away. You talked about being around supportive people. So these are all forms of healing. So going within.
Mhm.
But also the biggest part is that you talked about you are no longer silenced because silencing is a form of oppression. So, when these things happen to us and we go within and we're so ashamed, right? So it's like they have won. So when we speak out and say, no, this is not okay, just like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., no, this is not okay, we're speaking out against injustice, that's exactly what you did. So Dr. Davis, can you talk a little bit more in terms of what were some other things you did or in terms of your healing journey?
So I journaled. So I journaled about it a lot, to see what is to be revealed. And I prayed a lot and say, what in this is for me to become, because it's
Mm,
something inside of me that has to birth from this for
yes,
the greater good. You know what I mean? How can I
yes,
take this experience and make it good for myself and for others? And
yes.
work. It really, God revealed who I am and made me really see what leadership means to me, how I can become a better leader within my setting. And
Mm-hmm,
it made me speak out against workplace bullying, harassment, negligence, and I know now that
mm-hmm,
we can become leaders, and we are leaders that can love. We can be kind in leadership. We can bring our,
mm-hmm.
our faith into a leadership setting, not impose our faith upon others, but who you
Right.
are, your character, integrity, your kindness, love,
Mm-hmm.
become aware of who you're with, and bring that to the job. Because at the end of the day, especially in our field, we're working with children. We're modeling,
Yeah.
how to become humans for society. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
being oppressed, my morale is low, and if I
Right.
hate coming to work, I feel attacked all the time, how can I better perform and meet the goals of my organization when
Right.
I'm feeling so broken? I'm broken.
Right. Right. Right.
Made me
Right. We talked about that,
leadership.
right? Yes, yes, yes. So in terms of a certain environment, in terms of being taught, the workplace culture is to support our children or support the children we work with in being kind to others and respectful and all these different things. But then when we're being attacked and then we're tasked to then teach that to children, children can pick up on when other people are mistreating us, right? They can pick up on when we're not happy. So it's not conducive to the work we're doing, right? It really sabotages the work that we're doing. So can you talk a little bit more in terms of ways that you are supporting Black women in particular in terms of issues that they may be going through that's similar to what you've gone through?
So, there are certain, so what I call yes talks. So we have these conversations. I call them yes talks because when you're finished with it, you're like, yes. You know what I mean? It's not a bitch section. It's not where we just grope and just whine and complain about it. We actually
Yeah.
empower one another. I know specifically with Black women, we can read one another. We can read one
Mm-hmm.
another.
Yes, we
Know what
can.
certain mean. We know what certain tone of voice mean. We know one another.
Yes.
So also we can be most egregious against one another. Down
Mm.
out dirty. We can be just vindictive. So I know that what I always believe is stay true to who you are,
Yes.
mindful of your mindset and your thoughts, because
Yes.
everyone is with some broken pieces. So once I really got in tune with who I really am and noticed that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this isn't about me. This is not about me. I have the
Right.
right to shine, right to be who I am. And once you
Right.
empower yourself, and everybody's issues aren't your issues, and you move
Right.
accordingly.
Right.
Move
Right.
accordingly. Hmm.
Yes. And I think what's important is that we recognize that when people do this, they're doing so from a state of their own misery, right? So to attack other people, to humiliate other people, there clearly is something wrong with you that you would be doing that, right? So we always hear about hurt people, hurt people. Now, some level, there's some small degree of compassion, like, wow, you must be really miserable to be doing that. However, the line crosses is when you start harming other people. Okay. So in that regard, but then the focus is less on them and it's more so, like you said, on you. It's not that you did something. Yeah, we take a moment to self-reflect, but it's not that we just wallow in that, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. But I think, Dr. Davis, what you're saying too is that you have already been grounded in your greatness. You have already been grounded in your worth. So you know your bomb, right? So when somebody's coming to you and saying, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you're like, what are you talking about? It's kind of like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So when we don't have that sense of our own worth, then it can be very devastating. So you sounds like you have like a circle of women, sisters who support you, and that you're trying to provide that space for other Black women as well,
And I
right?
also say no. When you're in an organization, know the company's goals, know the policies and procedures, because you do have to fight sometimes. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
just say, oh, just focus, it may be all over. I had to fight. And I mean, literally defend myself, and we have to defend ourselves often,
Yeah.
but do it in a way that when you walk out of this, you're smelling like a rose. You didn't get dirty. You did it with your contract. Your contract.
Right.
Policies, procedures. You can write and respond. You know what I mean? So you
Mm-hmm.
just don't let. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let bully me, but
Right.
so I had to and show the leadership. This is where you're failing as a leader for me. Negligence. You're not
Mm-hmm.
giving clear expectations. Because they're
Hmm.
quick to tell you to be evaluated today, I would give you an unstat, and vice versa. If I were to evaluate you as my director or my boss or my, superintendent, whatever, here's where you failed me in a certain type of way.
Right.
You did training. Did you give me professional development? Did you offer me any advice or suggestions? So just
Right.
as having the courage to fight
Mm-hmm.
back, to stand and fight back.
Yes. So the courage and also knowing what are your options to stand up. Because sometimes when these things happen, we don't know about our options. We don't know about the different things we can do. And so knowing about your policies and procedures, standing up and saying that. And sometimes there's different options in terms of, do you want to get a transfer? Is there someplace else you want to go? Do you want to go to a different employer? Do you want to take legal action? Do you want to take a leave of absence? So there's so many different things that we can do, but sometimes we get stuck and think that we don't have any options, but we absolutely do, right? So, Dr. Davis, as we're winding down, can you just share a little bit in terms of the specific services that you have to offer Black women and how they will be able to access those services from you?
So I've contacted, through my email or through Instagram, you can DM me, and I do a lot of one-on-one consultation, just recent, and it's mostly women, I'm telling you, mostly women who I've given them a lot of suggestions, or even if they've gotten conference memos or write-ups, I can help look at that and, help them respond
Mm-hmm.
accordingly. And or even recommend. Sometimes you have to suggest for someone, hey, this may be beyond what you can handle or what you should handle, and take some legal advice. You know what I mean? We
Mm,
could talk it through,
okay.
see what are some of the best options.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So legal action may be an option, right? So I'm wondering,
Mhm.
with the women who are contacting you, what percentage would you say have experienced unkind behavior by other women? Because you
Ooh,
raise a really good point.
I can say like 98%
No way.
are, is,
Wow.
are treated by other women.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is so concerning. Oh, right. So we have already heard the saying, all kinfolk ain't skinfolk, right? In terms of all Black people are not going to be treated. But we're talking about women too, who are treating
Women,
us
and
so
even
unkind.
like some of my Latina sisters are being mistreated by other Latina women. So I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Why we're, so competitive, or, I believe that there's an abundance. This world has so much of abundance. There's enough for
Yeah,
us all. There's enough
yes,
for us all. So we don't have to tear one another down or strip one another, to feel like we're secure in our space. There's
right.
enough. There is enough for us all, you know?
Wow. So that level of insecurity and how it kind of eases out and trying to pull other people down to make it seem like you'll shine better because you're putting other people down. Okay. So Dr.
Ego
Davis, what
driven.
last Yeah, yeah. So, what last words can you share with the audience in terms of healing tips? So, you talked about things that you've done. What kind of healing tips can you share with the audience?
So self-care, we hear about self-care, self-care, self-care. Rest. I had to learn to rest during that time because my body was going. I lost hair. You know what I mean? So I had to learn to rest, eat
Yes.
well, spend time in meditation. I
Hmm.
journaled. I shared with close friends who, were just really supported me, and I believe because it's so personal, for each
Hmm.
person has a personal experience of what they've gone through. But what I hear, the
Yes.
common denominator, or the common outcome, is that once it's over, you feel so strong. You
Yes.
feel so in tune with self. And I feel right now in the best of my life, and I'm actually grateful for that experience. I'm actually grateful, and I oftentimes think to say that to that person, like, because of you, I feel so amazing. I'm walking in my purpose, and I feel
Yes.
so, faithful, and
Yes.
hopeful for my future. you, thanks. You try to destroy me, but you actually help me grow.
Okay, exactly right. Funny you said that because I wore my pin purpose today. And so it helps when you are in those situations where you're backed up against the wall. Again, that level of clarity. You get so clear in terms of why am I really doing this work? And you raised a really good point too that I wanted to uplift. You said that you started to question, do I even want to do this job anymore? Is this what I really want to do? And so it helps you connect to like a reality check. What do you really want to do with your life? And
Mhm.
really be more purpose driven. So I so appreciate you said that because I know I can relate to that, on so many levels. Like,
Yeah.
do I want to still be a psychologist? Like, is this what it's supposed to be? But sometimes you have to recognize, yeah, you still have the love for the work you do, but maybe the environment that you're in is not conducive to that. So
Yes.
being very
Yes.
clear about that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
Dr. Davis, any last comments you want to say as we start winding down for today?
I would say for anyone who is listening, if you know of anyone or if you are going through a toxic environment where you become physically, emotionally, mentally ill, seek help first. Get therapy. Go out because I did go to a therapist. Get help professionally. Find you a core group of people that you can trust. Share your story, speak out, and know that it is not okay for you to experience that. It's not okay in any setting,
Hmm.
workplace, or any setting that you are being bullied, harassed, or subject to a very hostile environment. It's not okay,
Right.
and you don't deserve
Right.
it. Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. So knowing your worth and standing up and saying, no, I know my worth. And also taking time to get healing from other people, including therapy. I'm so glad you said that. So we know many times within our community, particularly there's a stigma about mental health and treatment and therapy and all that, right? We got to say no. Well, we need help. We need help, right? As Black women, it's killing us when we don't get the help we need. So I just want to just plug just very briefly, how would you access a therapist, right? And I'm going to do a separate video about this too. So there's different ways you can find a therapist. You can go through your insurance carrier. There's also a resource directory. So Therapy for Black Girls, Psychology Today, the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, the Black Female Therapist. So there's so many different ways that you can find a therapist. And I know many times for us, we want another Black woman. So you can find a Black woman therapist. Please don't think that you can't, right? So we have that resource available. Dr. Davis talks about resources she has available. I also have resources in terms of a job coaching program for Black women. As I talked about before, many times we have to deal with the hurt and the pain of these toxic work experiences. Like if you want to move on, if you want to go on to a different environment, you have to deal with that pain and heal so you're in the best position to find a job that really affirms who you are, right? So there's so many different resources available to you. Dr. Davis talked about how to access her resources in terms of you can DM her through Instagram. Can you also share your email information?
I will. I will. It's Ayana.Davis. I'll try to type it at Yes
Okay.
Talks Inc.
Awesome. Awesome. And then
Yeah.
you can access me through DM, and you can also access the job training program that I mentioned for Black women through my website, liftingasweclimbconsulting.com. And also in terms of the YouTube channel, we're going to have additional special guests on who are sharing their stories so that we are not being silenced about these experiences and we are standing up and saying no more. This is unacceptable. Okay. So please subscribe to my channel, Lifting as We Climb Consulting, Wellness Services. And Dr. Davis, again, I want to thank you for taking your time and sharing your story because I know it can be healing to so many people. So thank you so much.
Thank work that you are doing is so well needed. It's so well needed. And thank you for those who joined. I saw my son. Yes, and he who is a therapist. So I had in-house therapy for my baby. And, I love you all and fight on for those Trojans out there and just be safe. Stay
Yeah.
as negative can, and I'm referring to COVID. Stay negative.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Okay, Dr. Davis. Well, thank you again. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. All these videos are available on my YouTube channel, and so I'll see you all next Monday. Enjoy your holiday. Bye.